White painted faces, overdrawn smiles, bright red noses with orange or green curly wigs, frilly collars, large gloved hands, and exceedingly long feet. Jumping out of really small cars, pieing people in the face, making balloon animals, squirting people with their water flowers. What is it about clowns that terrifies us so damn much? Whether it's the circus clown, the killer clown, or just any clown in general. Find out on this episode of What a Scream.
Shouldn't be afraid of spiders, shouldn't be afraid of bees, shouldn't be afraid of those creepy crawlies, you should be afraid of me, shouldn't be scared of the Dracula.
Hello there and welcome to the podcast. This is What a Scream, where I and a special guest chat about a certain subgenre or topic that I've previously randomly chosen. So as you could probably tell from the introduction, this week is all about clowns. Yeah, I know so many people that have a really bad fear of clowns. Coulrophobia, it would help if I could pronounce it right. Coulrophobia is the fear of clowns. And it's just, it's weird. Like, I need to get a psychologist beside me to tell me, why do we find clowns so scary? Like, is it because they're overly exaggerated, or the bright colours, or is it the fact that we can't see their faces and they're acting a certain way when really they might be feeling another way? It's all a little bit strange. So before I introduce this week's guest, I am going to give you a little bit of a backstory on clowns and clowns in horror, specifically in movies. Now, I got a lot of this information. There's an amazing video on YouTube by In Praise of Shadows, and they go through the history of the horror clown. So I got a lot of my info from there. So court jesters can be seen to date back as far as ancient Egypt, and then in the 1500s we had the Harlequin figure. So they're pretty much this old thing. Like, where the hell did it come from? Who decided that being a clown was a great thing? You know, great crack to be had, lads. But we didn't really see this trope of the scary clown until kind of the 1970s. Now, we did have the first real killer clown, which was the 1940s Joker from Batman. He was a serial killer, obviously. It was very dark in the 1940s. It was kind of based on The Man Who Laughed, which was a film that had a very creepy character whose face was kind of permanently in this weird smile, teethy smile. Check out the photos, they're terrifying. So yes, the Joker from Batman, it was very dark, it was very violent, until the comics code that came out that kind of put a stop to that, and it kind of made the Joker a bit more of a gag kind of cartoonish figure, until the 1980s, where we were introduced back to the serial killer Joker, with the comics such as Death in a Family and Killing Joke. He kind of returned as this very, very scary villain. So back to the 1950s, there was a film called Phantom of the Big Tent that introduced the idea of a killer clown, but unfortunately this film was lost, and all that's kind of left out there is a few internet articles about it and a film poster, so nobody really knows what happened to it, or whether even it was a film in the first place. Nobody knows. Then the Twilight Zone introduced a clown, a weird clown, creepy clown, in 5 characters in search of an exit, and it kind of introduced these very surrealist qualities that made it quite unnerving. That kind of, maybe that's why we're so fucking afraid of clowns, is that they are quite surreal and they're quite exaggerated and blah. Then we're going to jump to the 70s. The 1976, there was a Canadian movie called The Clown Murders, which was the first proper evil clown movie, and it was about this group of people who were clowns that wanted to like blackmail their boss, but they end up kidnapping his wife, and it all goes horribly wrong. So it's a weird film. It's not great. It contains real animal cruelty, so I'd stay away from it if you're kind of not in, well, who would be into that, but you know, if you don't want to see that. And then the kind of evil clown thing wasn't really a thing until the arrest of John Wayne Gacy, who I don't really want to go in like too much detail because I'm sure everyone knows about him, but he was a serial killer and he liked to dress as a clown for children's birthdays. And we always see that picture of him in his grease paint and in like his clown outfit, and it's all very, very creepy. And this kind of began a boom of evil clowns. So yeah, I don't know whether it's great to say that like John Wayne Gacy is to thank for the evil clown genre. It's kind of so in the 80s we saw obviously Poltergeist. It features a clown. House on Sorority Row, which features a clown, killer clown hiding in the attic in 1983. In 1986 we see the release of Slaughter High, which is a revenge film. It's about these kids and they pick on this guy in school and then they end up killing him because, you know, that's what you do. And then 10 years later they come back for a reunion because apparently none of them feel sorry about it. And he is back and he is wearing a clown mask. So we see this kind of, there's like three very clear kind of subjects when it comes to killer clowns. It's like killers in clown masks, and then we've got an actual human clown, and then we have a supernatural clown. So then the novel was released in the 80s, and this set the bar for killer clowns. Like, this was it. This is the turning point at which killer clowns really became a strong subgenre of horror. It had a 90s miniseries with Tim Curry as Pennywise, and perhaps the best scary clown of all. I mean, the actual series is awful. Like, it's absolute crap. It's awful. But Tim Curry is brilliant. He steals the show, and he will always be Pennywise. He is so creepy because, like, Pennywise isn't, you know, it's an alien figure from the book. It's an alien figure. But he takes on this overly kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like an overt clown comic appearance, and it's just so creepy. And then also in 2017 we had the Bill Skarsgård version of Pennywise with the It remake. And while I appreciate the two It remakes because it stayed a lot truer to the novel than the 1990s one did, I actually don't think Pennywise the Clown was all that scary in this. Yes, he looked great, don't get me wrong. Bill Skarsgård does an amazing job. But I just didn't find him scary. I didn't find him scary as Bill Curry. You know, Bill Curry, Tim Curry's cousin. I didn't find him as scary as Tim Curry. And I think that's because it was so fantastical that I just couldn't believe that this would be a scary clown killing people. Whereas you see Tim Curry and you're like, damn. Yeah, so, and apart from like the opening scene, I just didn't, it wasn't really that horror kind of, I don't know. It was a bit, and as well, it's a bit too CGI for me. I'm not into CGI. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's it for it. And then we had 1987's Blood Harvest, which is a really weird fucking film. Watching In Praise of Shadows break it down, I was like, what is this? No, absolutely not. And we see this connection with mental health and people having, in inverted commas, mental breakdowns and becoming a clown, which is a reoccurring theme in a lot of killer clown films. So it's kind of unusual as to why there is that connection. So the same year there was the release of Funland, which is another film about a guy who is an accountant for a theme park, and he has a mental breakdown and he becomes a clown. And then when he is fired, he goes on a mass shooter spree. Now, it's a terrible film. It's very homophobic. It's very racist. It's very discriminatory against people with mental health problems. Very misogynistic. Just bad. I don't know how this film got made. It's awful. So I mean, if you want to watch the worst film possibly of all time, then I would watch Funland. So then 1988 saw Killer Klowns from Outer Space, which is just chef's kiss. It's fantastic. There's a reason it's a cult classic. And then 89 saw the release of Clown House, which I'm not going to dwell on because it is by Victor Salvar, the gobshite that did Jeepers Creepers, and this was the film where he abused the child actor, and he's a terrible piece of shit, and I don't understand why people are still working with him. But, you know, whatever. If just, like, why would you bother working with him? Why would you bother watching his films? Like, absolutely not. So then 1991 we saw Shakes the Clown and Funny Man released, which is a British killer clown haunted house that stars Christopher Lee. And again, we see this connection with mental health problems and killer clowns. Like, can someone explain that to me? I don't get it. I need someone to explain what is the connection here. Maybe it's like a dissociative identity kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe I just don't get it. So then in 1998 we saw Clown at Midnight, which is set in a theatre, and we've got this Pugliacci the clown kind of character going around killing these high school kids, and there's a lot of high school tropes. It's typical 90s slasher. Story doesn't make sense, the characters are awful, the acting's awful, a lot of stereotypes. Then we saw 2000s, and it exploded with clowns. Like, seriously, the 2000s were like the little clown car, and there was all these clowns and clown horror films just clambering to get out. So in 2011 we saw Sid Haig's depiction of Captain Spaulding in Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, and again in Devil's Rejects. Now, obviously, it's not really a clown film, but he is a clown, and he plays it damn good, and he's fucking creepy, and he's fucking scary as hell. And again, it's that thing where I think the reason I love Sid Haig's performance in this is because the reason clowns make you so uncomfortable is because they're acting a certain way, but underneath they're another person altogether. So, you know, they've got the happy clown paint on their face, and they're all like, well, I'm a clown, blah, blah, blah. But underneath they're this horrible person. Like, we don't know. They could be serial killers. They could be fucking creepy old men. And that's exactly why I think Sid Haig's character was just brilliant, because it actually depicted why we find clowns so fucking scary. Then in 2012, we had the Irish film Stitches, which I think is one of the best horror comedies out there. It's fucking brilliant. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. Then we had Clown by Eli Roth, about this guy that dons a clown suit after the clown for his kid's birthday party doesn't show up, and he cannot take the clown suit off, and he becomes a clown. So it kind of merged body horror with clown horror. And then we saw Rob Zombie again with clowns in his film 31. And then Terrifier. So we had Art the Clown kind of join the Clown Hall of Fame. It's quite a gory film, and it suffers a lot from misogyny. And as in the video in Praise of Shadow said, when you have something like a slasher, for it to be kind of enjoyable, it needs to kind of, you know, they should be about rising up against oppression, and, you know, the final girl or the final character should always use their own skills to kind of defeat the evil and, you know, either escape or kill the evil. It should always be about beating your oppressor. But the female characters in Terrifier, they have no story. They're always waiting to be saved by men. They're just abused by Art, and they cannot overcome the trauma and the oppressor, and they kind of have no autonomy. They're just running around screaming a lot. So it will be interesting to see. Is there a Terrifier 2? I think there was talk of one, or maybe there is one. I haven't watched it yet. If there is one, I do need to watch it and check that out. So 2016, do you remember there was all those scary clown sightings? And I actually watched Wrinkles the Clown last night, which is a documentary on Amazon Prime. And that it's terrible. It's not even like scary. It's not even scary for like the clown. It's scary for these parents and how abusive they are towards their children. Like, I would never scare my child like that. If you cannot get your child to behave without resorting to damaging them psychologically, then you should not be a parent. I'm sorry. No, absolutely not. We also saw Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker, and again we have this connection with mental health and clowns. So the clown genre, it's still quite obscure, which is kind of weird because it's like they haven't been utilized as much as possible. And that's really sad because, like, clowns are fucking scary. Why haven't they been utilized more? So hopefully we can see a few more good clown horror films. If you know of any really good clown horror films, please get in touch and let me know. I do not like clowns. I have always been really scared of clowns ever since I was little. My parents used to take me to the circus, and whenever the clowns came out, I'd fucking hide under the benches or in my dad's armpits. I'm just not a fan. Not a fan at all. I really enjoy clown horror. Like, I love clown horror. But if I saw a fucking clown at a kid's birthday party or like at a circus, at an event, I'd fucking lose it. I'd refuse. I'd refuse to open my eyes. And they better not come anywhere fucking near me. So this week's special guest is a fellow performer and producer. They are wonderful, and they themselves are, well, they're a self-confessed clown. They do lovely clown makeup. They're actually one of the few, I don't mind burlesque clowns or cabaret clowns. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can stand you. But if some fucking creepy guy is standing out there with his fucking creepy balloon animals and his fucking big feet, no, I'm gone. I'm out. I'm dead. So yeah, sorry. Back to the special guest. My special guest is Mello Hex, and this week we are chatting about two clown movies. It was very hard to choose from, but we are talking about 1988's Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and we are also talking about 2012's Irish movie Stitches. So I would like to introduce to the podcast Mello Hex. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much for coming on. You look amazing.
Yes. As I said, when else do you get to clown up, on a Saturday afternoon? And, it was very appropriate for the episode. So I thought, of course.
Exactly. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, would you like to give us a little bit of info about yourself?
Yeah, sure. A wee intro.
Yeah.
So yeah, my name is Mello Hex, and I'm a burlesque artist and clown. I identify as clown generally. I think when it even comes to gender, that makes more sense to me. But yeah, I'm a theater maker, burlesque artist, and just all around clowning weirdo. And I did English literature in university, so I think that kind of the literary aspect,
Uh-huh.
kind of goes in and out of my life. So I do like research, and I have a folklore podcast with my friend, that kind of thing. It just finds its way into my life somehow. So yeah,
Yeah.
but generally, burlesquing and clowning is kind of my life right now.
Yeah. And are you a horror fan?
I mean, I'm not as obviously, I guess, as many people, if you're kind of in the kind of alternative communities, sometimes
Yeah.
it's more obvious who is. But no, I'm really into the creepy things.
Yeah. And what got you into horror in the first place?
Like, I can't pinpoint a horror movie. I would have seen things. My parents are Russian,
Mhm.
and I used to walk in on them watching various Russian films or maybe American movies, but with Russian dub,
Yeah.
things like that. But I think the most obvious one I remember, which I saw when I was way too young to see it, was nothing very obviously gory, but it was Interview with the Vampire,
Okay. Yeah.
which I've always been into, I guess, the kind of, I don't know, death lore and
Yeah.
vampire lore and kind of that kind of, I don't know, graveyardy, yeah, I don't know what else to say, like lore about
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So I think seeing that was firstly my sexual awakening.
Yeah. Of
which is
course.
which is great because it's all like about male homoeroticism, of
Yeah.
course. What else will get you? But I think that's what I can pinpoint. And I remember just walking out of my parents watching like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's my first kind of scary figure was, I think,
Yeah.
Freddy.
Okay.
I grew up to appreciate him, but as a kid, I think he freaked me out.
Yeah, I think he freaked everyone out because I remember being so scared of like how he looked and the fact that he had like knives as fingers. But then as an adult, when you rewatch Nightmare on Elm Street, you're like, it's not really that scary.
No, it's great, and I think it's a good character. But I think, yeah, what makes him terrifying is that he is a pedophile,
Yeah.
which is the scariest bit.
Yeah.
Honestly, you watch it when you're growing up, and you're like, oh damn, okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's the scary part.
Yeah, and then you've got all these like kids' Halloween costumes that are like Freddy costumes, and you're like, oh dear, oh no.
Oh dear. Yeah, that was my introduction, I think, and I'm just really into kind of, I guess, the sexy vampires mostly.
Yeah, I yeah,
Yeah.
I think Anne Rice was a lot of people's sexual awakening as teenagers.
What does that tell us, about us?
So you said that you're from Russia. Does Russia, like, I'm really ignorant of this, does Russia have a big horror film kind of industry or?
I don't know a lot about it. Like, my parents
Okay.
are Russian. I do speak Russian. But yes and no. It's not something I see crop up a lot. I think
Okay.
it's kind of mostly almost the way you would see kind of cult fandoms. I think
Yeah.
there's small patches of people that are very passionate about things, but it doesn't like produce a lot of horror.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because I think there is a potential to do
Yeah.
some really interesting stuff there, but I can't even think of like there again the most famous kind of um almost sanitized kind of pop version of like there was this popular horror series and it was about vampires
Okay.
in the early 2000s. I remember like my parents watching.
Yeah.
So I think vampires are very popular, but there's nothing that was really popular and major that has come out, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's a shame because I can imagine that Russia is very much, like that kind of place in Europe where they have a lot of folklore and a lot of strong tradition, and it's such a shame.
I love that's what I would have before I got introduced, to like Greek mythology. I've
Yeah.
had, Russian folklore and fairy
Yeah.
tales. And they're like fascinating and terrifying. You
Yeah.
know how original fairy tales are just so creepy.
Yeah.
And I grew up reading these really dark Russian fairy tales, and the kind of the creatures in the folklore are really interesting that you could
Yeah.
do so much with. But yeah, like I feel like it's yet to be made, or if someone who say is English speaking, if they could
Yeah.
like come along and incorporate like a really cool blockbuster or big major film featuring like Russian mythology,
Yeah.
that would be really cool because there are so many interesting figures that nobody knows about.
Yeah, it's so strange how that hasn't been kind of utilized, but it's kind of, I feel the kind of same about Irish mythology. Like it hasn't been, I mean, obviously we've got a lot of changeling kind of stories, but all of the other ones, it just hasn't been used and it's so terrifying. Like it's so scary.
That's why me and my friends started the podcast at the start of the pandemic, focusing on like Irish folklore
Yeah.
and Irish kind of paranormal stuff because, I think of paranormal things and folklore. I think Ireland,
Yeah.
whereas it's just become so kind of, I guess, Americanized again that you kind of forget we have so much here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is because it's been lost because obviously with folklore it's mainly like word of mouth and a lot of it's been lost unfortunately, but it's due to like great things such as your podcast that is carrying on the kind of oral tradition of this folklore but in another kind of media, in a more modern
Yeah.
media. So I think that's great.
Well, thank you. We do try. We're very happy about it, and we do really really enjoy it, and it's nice to see. I guess obviously the audience is mostly American as well, actually. People are like, wow, this is so fascinating. Ireland, and there's just such a rich history. And I mean, obviously, yeah, I'm kind of obviously from a mixed background, but
Yeah.
I do count as Ireland as like my home. I've
course,
been here
yeah.
for 20 years and it is home.
Yeah.
So there is so much here that we just don't talk about,
Yeah, really. So as people have probably guessed, the theme for this week is clowns. So you identify as a clown. What got you into clowns?
Another thing, I guess, I've been trying to pinpoint the exact like thing for a good few
Yeah.
years now, but I think it kind of accumulates in, I've always been a creep, I guess.
Yeah.
I used to collect, like porcelain dolls that
Yeah.
freak people out. Like when you're a child, like a toddler. My auntie had a huge collection of porcelain dolls and clowns. I was just so fascinated. They were so beautiful to me. My parents, I guess it's very strong in like Russian tradition,
Uh-huh.
to kind of, teach your kids to appreciate theater
Yeah.
and various theatrical forms. So I would have been taken to the theater and the circus
Mhm.
very, very young. I've been called up by clowns in the circus at least twice that I remember, and to me, that was just one of the highlights of my life. And just I don't even know. And I think one of the key things I grew up on a lot of Soviet films,
Uh-huh.
which my parents would have grown up on, and they're to this day some of my favorite things ever. Russian people stick very closely to like books if they're doing a
Yeah.
translation, so you get a very accurate and detailed kind of film, I guess.
Yeah.
So there was a Russian film version of Pinocchio that I used to watch religiously. And with these films, they didn't cut out the kind of, there's that puppet
Yeah.
master with all his puppets that are based on the traditional Commedia dell'arte clowns,
Yeah.
the Harlequin, the Pierrot. And that would have been one of my first introductions. You get to meet the whole kind of band of clowns and in their full gear and their
Mhm.
getup. And my favorite was the traditional sad clown, the Pierrot. He's
Yeah.
portrayed by this very tiny, like beautiful porcelain boy with like the full bob wig, full makeup, the white and black costume, and he serenades the Columbine girl and everything
Yeah.
in it. And I just thought it was, so melancholy and beautiful. And I guess that just really latched onto my imagination, you
Yeah.
know. And since then, it's just they follow me everywhere. I just love them. I love them so much.
If clowns were following me, I would just end it. I'd be like, no, absolutely not. I
Are
was
you
the
like
opposite.
freaked out by them?
Yes, so I was the opposite to you. So when we went to the circus or to the theatre as a child and there would be a clown come out, I'd be under the benches or I'd be like in my dad's armpit, just like freaking out, absolute freak, being like, tell me when it's over, tell me when it's over, tell me when they're gone. Even like when we went to Panto and there'd be like a clown figure, I was gone. I was out that door in the car park running home. Like, no, I'm just petrified of clowns. But like, I love horror clowns. I love like clowns in horror movies. I think they're great and I think they're really creepy. But if I see a clown in real life, like, I'm all right with kind of cabaret burlesque clowns because like a lot of people I know are clowns and they do the cabaret and burlesque and I'm like, I'm okay with that because I know who they are underneath the makeup. I know that they are okay
That
people.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah. But these people you see at like kids' parties, I'm just like, I'm a little bit
It's
wary. I'm like,
interesting. At least we have the two sides, someone who's
yeah,
petrified and someone who's a bit too obsessed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And how well do you feel that the world of burlesque and clowning kind of meld together?
I think, there's a little like pocket of
Hmm.
us, I guess, that have taken this burlesque clown, right?
Yeah,
And because it fits so nicely into the cabaret
yeah,
world, I think they're like siblings,
uh-huh,
it's also exaggerated. The whole point, like clowns were originally for adults, where
yeah,
it's the same as burlesque. You're making fun of adult life, of
yeah,
how ridiculous it all is. So that's why I think they're so perfectly matched for each other,
yeah,
but I think we could do more. I think, even myself, I've always wanted to train properly, like as a clown.
yeah.
So if I can, have someone teach me how to like juggle, and I want to take like clowning master classes, I want to like
Yeah.
really, really up that.
You want to go to clown college. And how do you feel about clowns in horror films as a clown? Uh-huh.
Love like what we have been given. I think, again, what we do have, or if you say clown, like
Yeah.
how many people do you know that wouldn't think of Pennywise first?
Yeah.
I think like the concepts that we do have are so strong.
Yeah.
But I think, and I'm not the only one who thinks this, but I think it's a genre that definitely hasn't been explored properly or fully
Yeah.
yet. And I think we're still waiting on our best clown horror film.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree with you.
Mm.
Um, because you do say clown and people think of Pennywise, but you're like, what else is there? Pennywise wasn't a clown, it was an ethereal being that took on the personification of a clown, but we haven't had like an actual, I mean, we have had a lot of, horror films with clowns, but not like they haven't been great.
I agree. It's unfortunate, but it's just facts, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
they're okay. And then there's a vast majority that I have only recently come across that I never heard of unless there's a really good video
Mm.
essay that I'm gonna tell you about
Yeah.
by there's a channel called In Praise of Shadows on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that.
A
Yeah.
very, very good video
Yeah.
essay. And the films in that video
Yeah.
essay, I've never heard them crop up
Yeah.
ever, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's a shame because even if you go, I've gone on deep Google searches and
Mhm.
you just get your kind of basic, like, oh, it,
Yeah.
Stitches, Killer Clowns, that kind of thing. You'll
Yeah.
have your few, and that's like it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Why do you think that clowns are so scary?
Because it's hard for me because I don't find them scary.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know
Why are you so scared of us?
why.
And it's like insulting, honestly, because when you love them so much, you see so many, like, I don't understand their rage, but I understand their
Yeah.
rage. But you see so many people that are like, fuck these clowns, I hate them. And I'm sitting there like, ouch, ow.
I actually watched have you seen the documentary on Amazon Prime called Wrinkles the Clown?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so I watched it last night and there's a clip in that where so he gets like parents to ring him to like scare misbehaving children, which is horrible in the first place from the parents. Like, don't fucking psychologically fuck up your child. Um, that's like the opposite of what you're meant to be doing as a parent. But yeah, he gets people like ringing him and texting him being like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, I'm gonna torture you. Like they are horrible to him just because he's a clown. And like I'm not that bad. Like I would never wish ill on someone. I'm just a little bit wary of yous. I just want to be
Yeah, what can I ask, what like scares you then about them? That you don't know who it is?
I think that's it. It's very much like you can't see their true face underneath it. And I think when I was actually watching the In Praise of Shadows little like video documentary about it, and they were like, you see a clown act, they've got overdrawn smiles and they're all like happy and blah 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 blah, and it's very exaggerated, but they could be someone completely the opposite underneath it all, and they could be like almost like Sid Haig's character from House of a Thousand Corpses, or they could be like John Wayne Gacy, as we've seen.
It has literally happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew that was going to come up because
Yeah.
there was no way everybody says this, there's no way
Yeah.
you can talk about clown horror and not talk
Yeah.
about Gacy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think like the more you look at it, I think that is kind of at the root of what happened to create the scary clown,
Yeah.
right? Because I think that just obviously shook so many people.
Yeah.
And whenever there is such a massive true crime case like that, like there's no way you can kind of return from that. Like he
Yeah.
has really done a number on clowns, unfortunately. But I think, yeah, I'm because I'm not scared of clowns, I'm just so intrigued as to why, I guess. But the common thing, I guess, is that the phenomenon of the uncanny valley, right?
Yeah.
That it's something mostly human, but not quite.
Yeah.
And your brain just kind of says, no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just that. I mean, generally, I guess there's people who are actually just terrified of like the look, I
Yeah.
guess. But there is that, I think the exaggerated features scare some, and that it's human but not human, like the clown feet that are obviously really exaggerated, exaggerated body parts. I guess that freaks people out if it's like a elongated body part, which is a bit scary.
Yeah.
And actually, the phobia name, which isn't actually officially like recognized, like coulrophobia for clowns, it actually translates like literally from Latin as fear of limbs, actually, which sounds more scary.
Yes.
Which is disgusting, I find. So that kind of makes sense, that it's like, you'll have, I don't know, like it happens in Stitches, which we will talk about, where there's like a hand will bounce out, or long body parts extend or something. I get that being scary because it's not human. We don't like something that's not human. It's not safe.
Yeah. And I think I find clowns quite unpredictable Like, you don't know what they're gonna do. Like, are they gonna give you a balloon animal, or are they gonna like shoot you in the face with some water out of a flower? Like, and I'm not good with I'm a Taurus. I'm not good with unpredictability. I like stability, and I like to know what people are gonna do. And I think that's another reason why I get quite like. "Ugh."
To me, that just adds to the package of why I love clowns, because they're just this, I don't know, kind of, yeah, ethereal, unpredictable ball of fun and chaos, you know. And I get how that is terrifying to us, because we want to, like, yeah, we want to know where everything's coming from, we want to know who everybody is,
Yeah.
we need answers, and clowns are like, nope, not gonna give that to you.
We have this kind of like actual human clown kind of figure. A lot of the time in movies, it's depicted kind of negatively as a mental health problem. How do you feel about that kind of connection?
I think another reason, going back to like a real person, like with Gacy, that is probably because of our first like father of clowning
Yeah.
is Joseph Grimaldi,
Hmm.
and he gave us the kind of modern idea of the clown that we kind of know today. But he also gave us that the kind of that famous kind of joke that people tell you. I think it's a very like hard hitting but very true joke, where a person goes to the doctor and says, doctor, like, I'm really depressed, like life's just not worth living for me, everything's really hard, everything's really chaotic, like what do you think I should do? The doctor says, oh, I've got a cure for you, like there's actually the famous clown Grimaldi's in town, like people are saying it's hilarious, you should go, it'll cheer you up. And the man says, doctor, I am Grimaldi.
Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah.
me. He was unfortunately an alcoholic, and he died very young because of that. And
Hmm.
something, yeah, so cultural again has just like latched on into our kind of cultural psyche, and that kind of idea of the sad clown who,
Hmm.
the clown has to make other people laugh. Like the idea of Robin Williams comes to mind, that
Yeah.
kind of idea, and that person, it's so hard to separate, I
Yeah.
find, when there's just such a big figure like that. And so it's tricky not like not going for the kind of mental illness of it, because I
Yeah.
guess people are just so fascinated with the duality of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But then also it's like it's overdone. This is why we need better, more interesting movies, because you shouldn't be going to that. Like, it's
Yeah.
just kind of, it's tired at this point. I think it's interesting, it can be
Yeah.
done very well, and the new Joker film is excellent, like an excellent brutal portrayal of mental health,
Yeah.
but excellently done. But also you're like, can we have something that isn't just relying on, oh, it's just a mentally ill person who's also a clown? Great. you
Yeah.
know
I think I'm kind of fed up with the whole, every mentally ill person is a killer. And then that goes hand in hand with like the clowning. And it's just kind of, it's a boring trope. And it's just, I could kind of see it in the way like all performers and all artists are like clowns, in the way that we all put on a face and we all put on an air of someone else. We all have our performer alter egos, you know. On stage I'm Miss Dolly, at home I'm Ma'am. Like, that kind of way. So I kind of get that, but yeah, I really don't like the link between homicidal and mental illness.
Yeah, because I mean that goes hand in hand with our, the being transgender goes
Mm,
hand in hand with being mentally ill, goes hand in hand with other a killer now. I think it's the
yeah.
same kind of family of that trope, where it's like, this shouldn't be the reason why they became a homicidal maniac, but
Yeah.
you're kind of saying that it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's just tired, and there's so much you could do, especially something as vast and as colorful as like clowning. It's like
Yeah.
there's such a rich history there, and you're just gonna go for, oh, it's a crazy angry person,
Yeah.
guys. Oh,
Yeah.
you know.
So let's get on to our films. Now, I'm going to let you go first and introduce our first film. Hi, I'm just interrupting our little chat about clowns to tell you all about Hollow Hill Apparel. Now, they are a small Irish business selling spooky t-shirts and socks and badges and all that monster merchandise. So check out hollowhillapparel.com and don't forget to use the code OGolly10, all in capitals, to get a discount online. Now, back to my chat with Mello Hex about clowns.
I'm bringing Stitches to the table.
Woo.
So the nice thing, I think, I wanted to talk about this film for two reasons. One being that it is Irish,
Mhm.
and the second is that I think it is one of the successful kind of clown horrors because specifically, and I think that video essay that we talked
Yeah.
about by In Praise of Shadows talks about that as well, that it's actually one of the only films that uses the clown tropes and like clown, what's the word, paraphernalia
Yeah.
to actually create the horror. And I really loved that about it. You know, I'll explain more, I guess, as we get on. But Stitches is a 2012 Irish film directed by Conor McMahon, and he has only two other horror films. So, I mean, if I said this to people as well, not many people know this film
Uh-huh.
or McMahon's work, unfortunately, yet. But Stitches is a horror film about a clown called Stitches, and he's a sort of, how would you say, the kind of laid back, lazy
Yeah.
clown who doesn't really take his job seriously. He seems like he's not really loving life at this point.
Yeah.
And he's hired to do a children's party, and unfortunately the children are really mean. They're little assholes.
Yeah.
And they get him killed. It's an accident, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah.
No fun to die at a kid's party. That's not great.
No, absolutely not.
And the clown comes back 6 years later to sort of enact his vengeance on these little assholes.
As you do.
Rightfully so, though. Am I not right? I
No,
would.
yeah. Yeah. Especially the way they are just terrible children. So the clown is played by a British comedian, Ross Noble, and I just think he does such an amazing job as this clown.
Excellent. It's hilarious.
Mm.
I am such a sucker for that kind of. I'm such a like deadpan, sarcastic person anyway, so that kind of deadpan humor really just gets me. I love it.
Yeah.
And it is funny. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a bit cheesy, this film, but it is also really fun.
Yeah, it's just like I watched it again there, obviously coming up to this podcast, and it actually made me laugh out loud a good few times, and that's really hard for me to do. Like, I don't really laugh at a lot of things, but this is just so funny, and the gags in it and the kills are just, they're really gross and gory, but they're hilarious at the same time.
I think so too. I was screaming.
Yeah.
I think it helped. This is one of those you can watch with like a friend or friends. Yeah. It makes it far more enjoyable. So I watched it streaming it,
Yeah.
because that's all we can do right now with a friend. And I think that just added to it because she was horrified and screaming at the gore, and I was just roaring laughing. I don't. Maybe that means I'm sick, but but it's funny. And I mean, that is something I was just so impressed that like in this film, for example, he'll like take off his nose and you see the kind of how do you describe it? Like when you're decomposed, so you have no nose,
like a hollow nose. Yeah.
You can see his nose cavity. And he takes off his clown nose and sort of lets it run down the stairs, and it kind of moves, independently, sniffing out some like his next victim. Like, that's brilliant. A little sniffer nose. And he also, all his kills are then somehow related to the 6 years ago, how the children sort of made fun of him or tortured him. So it's like, I like when that ties in. I'm just a sucker for things tying in and lining up. So just satisfying.
Yeah, we see a lot of his kills are clown gags as well. And one of the ones that I absolutely adore is where he guts one of the victims and he uses his intestines as like a balloon animal, basically. And it's so inventive. Like, so inventive.
I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Thank you. It's brilliant. Everything. There's like, one of the kills is with an umbrella.
Yeah.
Intestine gag, and then he pumps him with a balloon pump, which is bizarre. And he makes at some point he's scooping somebody's brains out and makes a little ice cream platter with brains. It's beautiful. I loved it.
And it does not hold back from the gore, and that's something I really appreciate.
Not that I would love gore, but I'm a big fan of special effects and makeup artists. So I'm just so excited whenever a film actually uses special effects.
Yeah, same.
So this was excellent. It's excellent for that.
Yeah. I mean, the acting, apart from Ross Noble, it's not great. You know, it centers on a bunch of like Irish kids, and it's, as you said, it's a bit cheesy, it's a bit, you know, hammy, and it's kind of like this. It's like American Pie mixed with a killer clown. You know, all these kids are trying to get laid, and you know, it's
Yeah,
just,
basically.
yeah, it's
In
a bit
Ireland.
cringy. Yeah, it's a bit cringy at times. But the main character is British, which I found kind of weird.
There is that. Yeah, I had this issue that the main character and the clown are British. So you're
Yeah.
thinking, is this a Protestant area? Is this what's happening? You know? Is that just what it is? It's a posh Protestant school. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
go. I'll bite. Okay.
Yeah, I can't relate, but okay.
But okay, yeah, yeah. But it's just, it is cheesy, but I loved
Yeah.
it. You know, it is a really good one, and they do something quite interesting in it, which actually, you know, the egg thing, their
Mm,
like clown mythology. It's
yeah.
very brief in the film, but I find it like so beautiful almost.
Yeah.
Maybe just because I'm a clown freak.
So
But they
is that
give you,
yeah, so
yeah,
there's like an underground party clown cult kind of.
like
Yeah.
there's, you know, one of the kids stumbles upon this when the clown dies, and there's this literal clown church, and he noticed these clowns kind of, they've painted faces onto eggshells, and they kind of protect them in a little what do you call it, a little
Like a
glass,
glass, yeah.
the thing the beast keeps the rose in and
Yeah.
the one of those,
Yeah.
like a terrarium but not a terrarium.
Yeah, like a bell
um
jar kind of.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you see these tons and tons of these little bell jars with these clown faces in them, and these clowns in this clown cult tell this child like a clown cannot rest, and he'll never have peace until if he doesn't finish a party, which apparently is why he comes back, even though it's for revenge mostly, you know.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was really nice. And then there is actually a literal clown church in East London where there is a collection of these clown eggs. It's
Oh
a
my
real
god.
thing,
Oh my god.
and they're beautiful. They're beautiful. It's like called the Clowns Gallery in London. And there's a literal church. There's a video on YouTube of clowns. They're, you know, official working British clowns
Yeah.
going for mass in this clown church, like honoring Grimaldi, the father of British clowning.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? A bunch of clowns going to mass in clown
Wow.
gear. Yeah.
I mean, it's not far from the Catholic Church, but let's not get into
Different kind of buffoonery there, you know.
yeah.
But
I quite liked in this film how they kept it quite, even though the main character is British, even though obviously Ross Noble's British, they kept it quite Irish. So for anyone that's not from Ireland, in Ireland, if you're taking the piss out of someone, you say you're a clown, and you're like, you're such a clown, stop being a clown. And I like the way it kind of kept very Irish kind of euphemisms in this film.
my favorite being when one of the kids calls the bully girl "you knacker bitch."
Oh, I love
That's
that.
my favorite
I loved
line.
that bit. Yeah,
My favorite
knacker
line.
bitch.
"You knacker bitch, you." It was beautiful, and you're like, "Thank you for this, for using the
Yeah.
clown gags, and for that Irish euphemism." Love
Yeah.
it.
Thank you for not catering to like outside.
Yeah, and it is very Americanized. Like no
Yeah.
secondary school has ever been like that. But I think that was just probably an attempt to sort of, you know,
Yeah.
what's right, even out the audience, I guess, make it more Americanized,
Yeah.
like high school.
So after Stitches has pretty much killed nearly everyone in the house, the main character and his love interest go up to the graveyard to try and smash his egg. And what did you think about his kill scene where Stitches gets?
It's part of the whole thing. I love
Yeah.
it. It was just, yeah. I don't want to like, you don't want to give too many spoilers, right?
Oh no, we give spoilers on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I think it just plays with the whole kind of vibe and theme of that kind of hammy, but hand in hand with just perfect clown gags for every
Yeah.
kind of murder. I just thought
Yeah.
it was great. I was happy.
It's yeah, his death scene is like a big clown gag. And the funny thing is like when they squish his egg, he exudes yolk. And it was so surprising the first time I saw it. I did not I thought he'd like crumble to dust or something silly like that. But the fact that yolk starts coming out of every orifice, and it actually made me feel a little bit nauseous. I was like, ugh.
Pretty vile, but
Yeah.
also you're like, yeah, I
That
get
makes
it.
sense.
you know, their essence, or their, I guess to me was kind of hinted, like obviously this actual clown egg thing is a form of like copyright, you know,
Yeah.
every clown draws their kind of individual face on, but in this kind of thing it's hinted, and you kind of buy into the
Yeah.
mythology that it's like their soul almost, you know. So
Yeah.
of course they crush the egg and he oozes yolk.
Yeah. As you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think makes this film so great when it comes to like clown movies?
It's the humor, and
Yeah.
it is going again back to these clown gags. It's done right.
Yeah.
And so many films, like surprisingly, you would think, you know, even like the Joker, you know, I think he's one of our most known, obviously, pop culture clowns, right? And he is.
Yeah.
Again, though, unfortunately, like the comic Joker is also, you know, like homicidal.
Yeah.
That's great. But he's also really fun, like, you know, when they had to censor the comics and he became
Yeah.
that slapstick kind of madman. That is at least, you know, hand in hand with the clown gags. Like he's got his
Yeah.
little flower squirty guns, he's slapping people with fish, you know. It's ridiculous, but that's what clowning is. That's a
Yeah.
big part of it, you know. And again, so many films, they just don't have any clown gags. They don't
Yeah.
even have like clown props. They're just like a killer, you know,
Dressed as a clown. Yeah.
dressed as a clown, and you're like,
Yeah.
you're really not giving me what I want here,
Yeah.
you know. And you think it's ridiculous because you're gonna go make a clown film. I would, you know, have my prop table laid out with all the most
Yeah.
ridiculous things ever, but they don't even. So many films forget to even. I don't even know why, because I want that answer. They forget
Yeah.
to remind you that this person is an actual clown. And I
Yeah.
find it really funny to use that kind of dark humor. I
Yeah.
guess it's that, you know, I enjoy twisting things that shouldn't be twisted into something dark, being
Yeah.
kind of dark and creepy. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Absolutely.
interesting and it's funny.
Yeah. So would you recommend Stitches to horror movie fans?
If you're the clowns, you will like this because, you know, he's not too scary.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a scary clown kind of film. It is more gore. So if you're into
Yeah.
gore, you'll like it. If you're into clowns, you'll like it. If you hate clowns, you'll like it. And if you want to support an Irish film, you'll like it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I think, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the second film, which is a bit of a cult classic. You see kind of their images everywhere. And it's one of those films that you're like, I really should watch this. So this is me saying you really need to watch this. So this is a 1988 American sci-fi horror called Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Possibly one of the best titles for a horror film ever. Like they were
spelled with a K.
Yeah, spelt with a K, exactly. Yeah, they were really not going for subtlety when they were naming this film.
And thank God they didn't.
Yeah, so it's written and directed by the Chiodo Brothers, and it was actually their only film that they wrote and direct. But they are known for their practical effects and makeup. They did the stop motion animation in Elf. For anyone who's kind of new to movies or whatever, that's all them. They've done loads of others. They did like Critters as well. They did like Pee Wee Herman film. They've done so much, and they are so well known for their special effects. And the thing I love about this film is that it was such a low budget film, and the only reason they could have all these mad sets and mad special effects was because of their own talent. Like they literally did everything. It was such a DIY film. So the whole storyline is we've got Mike and Debbie, who are lovers up on what they call the top of the world, or Lovers Lane, and they see
people that his name is Tobacco.
Oh yeah, Mike Tobacco, yeah.
Best part, yeah.
Yeah. And they see what seems like a falling star or a comet, so they go follow it, and they find this circus tent, and they think it's a normal circus tent. So they go in, and it's all twisted, house of mirrors, very surreal, very like circus, like magnified. And then
circus explosion.
Yeah. And then they come across what they find out is candy floss cocoons. And
My
Debbie,
favorite thing. I can't.
Debbie says the best line in all of it. She's like, we've got to get out of here because nobody stores cotton candy like this.
Clearly, that is the only reason to get out of a midnight circus that shows up by itself in the middle of a forest. Yeah.
Yeah. Although if I saw that much cotton candy hanging up, I'd be in there. Like I would be the first victim because I'd be like, "Ooh, candy
God,
floss,
yeah.
yum."
Yeah, my favorite thing.
Yeah. And then when they peel back the cotton candy floss cocoons, they find a dead person. And then they are set upon by these killer clowns from outer space, and the circus tent is actually their UFO, and they wreak havoc on the town. And it's up to them and their police friend to try and kill them.
So 80s, and it's so beautiful.
I mean, the Chiodo brothers were influenced by. There was a group of designers. Hang on, I'm going to find their name. There was a group of designers from the 80s that kind of created that 80s look, you know, the geometric shapes and the bright colors. What were they called? The Memphis Group design. So that typical 80s look, which is like massive geometric shapes, really bright colors. Someone's been on an acid trip. They really took their influence, and you can see that on the set design when it comes to the circus tent and the UFO, and the actual look of the clowns is just so blows your mind.
I love them. I love them.
Yeah.
Some of the best, you know, clown design, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
They're so like, you know, if you see one of the clowns, you're like, that is from Killer Clowns.
Very memorable. They're, again, very 80s,
Yeah.
super exaggerated, but I love them. I love them so much.
I mean, the acting's terrible in this, don't get me wrong. Like, there's one bit where one of the clowns is like messing up a pharmacy, and the pharmacist is just sitting there like, and it's terrible. You know full well that if you saw a like 7-foot clown come into your shop, you'd be out the back door.
Mine would be out the back door, I think, you know? Because that's not right.
Right?
Not
Or
if he's 7 feet.
or there's this scene where these people are at a bus stop and the clown starts doing the puppet shadows, and they're all like, ah, that's so funny, that's so funny. I'd be like, fuck no.
I think that was an interesting part. Like, it is very ridiculous,
Yeah.
but it's like, I heard people talk that it's part of the movie lore. You have to kind of like get into the mind of this. This is a town that apparently has nothing to fear from the circus, UFOs, and giant clowns. To them, like, it's not a source of danger, it's a source of like happiness. And then the only person who seems to have a bit of cop on is Debbie.
Yeah. She's the only one that's like, "Ooh, we
like,
need
what's
to sort this
going
shit
on?
out." Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like this. This is bad news. And everyone's like, yeah, shadow puppets. Yeah.
Woo! So as well as like Stitches, Killer Clowns is great because they use a lot of clown gags. So they have when they're trying to find the kids again, they've gone into the forest, they use a balloon dog on a leash to go sniff them out. And it's so funny and so ridiculous. And then they've got the popcorn that turns into like clown babies.
Yeah. They're in this world. It's they collect people that they kill and they turn them into the popcorn that they carry around like in a suit. That's like, the popcorn is like the first stage of these alien clown babies.
Yeah, as you do. Yeah.
I love that. See, used correctly, like, it's hilarious, it's bizarre, and I love it so much because imagine if this movie had no, like, it was just all kind of aliens pew pew.
Yeah.
It would not be the same thing, and it would be so ridiculous.
But in a bad way. Ridiculous in a bad
terrible,
way.
unwatchable way.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely harks back to like the 1950s sci-fis where it was like really ridiculous, but it kind of made sense. And that's I think one thing that I like about Killer Clowns from Outer Space is it's so ridiculous it almost makes sense.
The kind of world it is, fine, I'll go along with this then. It's brilliant. I love it. Yeah, I think they're funny. I think they're the clown gags, again, I'm repeating myself like a broken record, but it's just what makes it. It's what these clown movies are drastically missing, and it's nice that both our films obviously specifically utilize that.
Yeah.
And that is something that I want to see, better clown horror that actually uses the gags.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people will watch Killer Clowns and think, oh, it's just a ridiculous fun movie, but there are two scenes in it that actually got to me a little bit. So there's one scene where there's a little girl in a fast food diner and there's the clown that's like beckoning her out. That gave me the creeps a little bit. Like, in the middle of this very fun movie, there's that little section and you're like, Oh dear, no.
It goes back to that thing of like it's the children, and it's the
Yeah,
if a clown, then thanks John Wayne Gacy.
yeah,
Really seriously ruined it for everyone. If a clown then is this child friendly thing we have at children's parties that
yeah,
then has that weird like unsafe creepy vibe towards children, it's just, yeah, it really,
yeah.
it's the clashing again of something that should be really safe for children that really isn't.
Yeah, I think
That's
that,
creepy.
yeah, that's what makes me feel quite uncomfortable about clowns as well. That I'm like, it's you know what also creeps me out? I think it's the same thing as dolls. Something that's meant to be perceived as like childlike and innocent, but then it's turned on its head and it's like completely the opposite. For some reason that really gets to me. Yeah, and the other scene that really got to me was, you know, where they're in the prison and one of the clowns is using the uh Sergeant Mooney as the ventriloquist dummy. That was really like it was that was really creepy.
Actually creepy. I think in that case, like the acting is pretty terrible, but I think
Yeah.
he actually does a good job. Like the voice that comes out of
Yeah.
him is really creepy.
Yeah.
With his like little dead open eyes, and you're like,
Yeah.
ugh.
I
Those
mean,
small.
it's the film isn't that gory. That's probably the goriest kind of bit of it. And it was just kind of like I think because it's right in the middle and it just kind of like it's not all happy kind of twisted sunshine, but all of a sudden there's this guy who's been like, you know, hand inside his head and his lips are moving because this giant clown has stuck his glove up, you know, goodness knows where.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah. So would you recommend Killer Clowns from Outer Space to people?
Absolutely would. If anything, just like for the ridiculousness of it,
Yeah.
for the visuals, for the sorry, for the 80s madness of it all.
Yeah. I mean
If
it's not,
anything.
you know, the story's not great, the actings aren't amazing, but if you take it for what it is, which is kind of a demonstration of what the Chiodo brothers can actually do, and it's amazing. Out of the two films, which one would you pick over the other?
Oh God. I would probably watch Killer Clowns. Like if you were at
Okay.
like you had to ask me, right, well, you're having a on your birthday or something, we're
Yeah.
gonna have a movie night, which one? I would go for that one probably just because yeah, it's more fun
Yeah.
and mad. And I would probably want to do a themed party around that
Ooh.
because that's just the way I am. I'll just theme everything and
Yeah.
it's more fun to do obviously with like
Yeah.
your balloon sniffer dogs and your popcorn
Yeah.
babies.
Yeah. And candy floss cocoons and yeah.
Love the candy floss cocoons. I
Yeah.
just love them so much. It's brilliant.
I think that would be one clown party I'd actually go to. Would be a Killer Clowns one. Yeah. If it was just normal clowns, no, but a Killer Clown. Yeah. I think you know what's so weird? Like I really love Killer Clown movies. And I think that's because I know what they are and I can decipher them, you know? Whereas when it's a normal clown, I'm like, I don't know who you are. So, what do you think is the legacy for clown films? Like, how would you like to see? I mean, we've touched upon it a little bit, but how would you like to see clowns kind of carry on in horror?
I think the essence of it is because I am like a clown. Like I love the history of it. It would be that to make some good clown horror where um I guess it'd be equally valid for people who are really truly horrified of clowns to make a
Yeah,
good clown horror. But then I also want people like me who really love clowns to have a hand in making good clown horror. And I think people do need to utilize like the gags and the
yeah.
history. I want to see someone who like really did their homework, I guess, and to
Mhm.
find a new kind of interesting level to that because otherwise they are just these very surface level, oh, scary clown running around killing
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
and it's just not interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've done like makeup looks for Art the Clown, but how do you feel about Terrifier the film?
I think it's interesting that he's probably one of few clowns who he doesn't have any dialogue.
Hmm.
I think that's interesting and obviously adds to the horror of him
Yeah,
that he's never spoken. I don't know what's down there, you know, and you don't know his thoughts. You don't know.
yeah.
He has no catchphrases,
Mm.
nothing. So you almost don't even have like a personality. And I do love the design. I like that it's this low budget thing that's kind of growing slowly.
Yeah.
that, you know, has the potential to be a franchise.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, I just thought the movie was so like, this is the Terrifier, yeah, that
Yeah.
apart from his design, the movie was so basic, and
Yeah.
it really just upset and disappointed me, because from the design of him I expected so much more.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, like it's just so basic, and they use that trope of, you know, just violence against women with no
Yeah.
like purpose a bit
Mm.
too much. um and it was just, it felt kind of like a student film almost,
Okay.
you know, for me,
Yeah.
that you're like, it was just kind of, it is very, very gory. So I mean, if
Yeah.
somebody is all over for the gore, they want the gore,
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, it just, I needed more like, I need more heart and like personality.
Yeah.
Like I said, I like meaty clowns, and I like meaty people. You know, I like digging in the soul of somebody, you know. So
Yeah.
I need somebody to have heart, and I like a good, like good plot, good characters, and a good I don't know, like everything needs to be purposeful, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
completely agree.
unfortunately, yeah, it was quite disappointing, but
Yeah.
I do love the design of him. I
Yeah.
like Art the Clown.
Yeah, I do. I'd be completely on the same level as you. Like, I think he looks great. I think it's terrifying looking, like really terrifying looking. But the actual film itself is just very poor.
It was again kind of bad acting,
Yeah.
like a film, like as if students made the film. I really felt that way. The bad acting, the very poor dialogue, and nonsensical, non-purposeful violence
Yeah.
against women,
Yeah. I'm not into
you
that
know,
at all.
unfortunately. But
Yeah.
you know, I hope, like I have seen people talk that it has the potential yet to be a franchise, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll get better films leading on from this, like, and I hope so,
Yeah.
because I am really still waiting all the time for some really
Yeah.
cool clown horror to come out that isn't going to disappoint me.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. So before we go, what is your favorite horror film?
I feel like I'm just disappointing all the horror fans listening to this right now, just because I'm just so much more into, yeah, like the vampire stuff, and I
Yeah.
can't pinpoint like a favorite vampire. Just going back to like this, the thing that started it all, even though it's not exactly horror, would be like Interviewed Vampire.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. Here I am disappointing every single fan. I cannot for the life of me pick anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
We'll
don't know.
just we'll go with Into You with the Vampire.
Let's go into Vampire.
Yeah, I mean, it does have elements. It is a horror, you know, it's based on a horror kind of creature and it has elements of horror in it. Like the bit that always freaked me out was when Claudia had the corpse underneath her dolls on the bed. That always freaked me out.
I mean, I saw this at 4, like 4 or 5. I remember it very clearly.
So thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this clown episode.
So happy you asked me. Like, what a way to spend your day. I love it.
So that was my chat there with Mello Hex about clowns and clown movies and why we're so fucking freaked out by clowns. And we talk about 2 clown films. So that is 1988's Killer Clowns from Outer Space, absolute cult classic. It's, if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. And 2012's Irish horror comedy, Stitches Clown, starring Ross Noble as Stitches. A fantastic film. So what did you think of this week's episode? Are you scared as fuck as clowns as well? Or are you a clown yourself and you want to come on and defend your way of life to me? I will have you on as long as you're not in clown makeup. I will be fine. So get in touch with us over on Instagram and Facebook. That is What a Scream Podcast. On Twitter, what_scream. You can find us on Letterboxd as well, where you can keep up with all the films that we are discussing, and you can find out what we're discussing in the future as well. So you can do a bit of a watch along, and so we won't be spoiling anything for you. You can also email whatascreampodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to be a guest on the show, get in contact. If you would like me to be a guest on your show, maybe get in contact with me. I'm always up for some post, what do they call it? You know, where we do each other's shows, whatever that's called. I don't know, words fail me. So as always, I hope you are staying safe and staying horrific. Goodbye.